Okay, so that's got all of the slides in place and synced up with the music. Now we can go back to the beginning and we can work on the individual slides and add the effects and make sure that they work in time with the music. So let's go to the first one, which is the road sign and the opening. This one is going to need a couple of captions on it, and here are the captions. I'll just add them now onto the timeline here, into the slide. These were created in Photoshop, and I've done them in Photoshop because I want to move them in a way that it's not possible to move them in Producer. Right, they look a bit big to me. I'm going to make them 80%. Copy that to the next keyframe, and I'm going to make that 80%. That looks a bit better. We'll copy that to the next keyframe. Okay, so how do we want to position them? I think maybe if we line them up on the center line so that the first one ends on the center line and the next one starts on the center line. That's probably a good way to do it. That one I think can come down a bit, and we'll move that one down a bit as well. Okay, now we've got to set them so that they work in time with the music. This is the first one we're going to move in, so let's find where it starts. On that beat there. Just there, methinks. Why is that one moving? Let me copy it to the next keyframe. Stop it moving. Okay. Right, that should now come in on the musical phrase. I think it's there. I think that's the end of the phrase, the beginning of the next one. Let's just copy that to the next keyframe so it stays still, and do the same with that because it's all moving around the screen at the moment. Let's listen to it one more time. No, that's actually too late. It's got to come there, I think. Let's put the movement in and see. I'm going to rotate this one, or use the tilt to rotate it, and we'll make that -90. Okay, let's see what it does. I think that was right. I need to listen to it again. I would say that was right, and that one finishes at 9.11, so this one has got to start at 9.11 and go on to somewhere there. Right, let's just copy that to the next keyframe, and I think this needs to be 90. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Okay, just listen to it one more time. Somewhere there is the point I want to zoom it, make it zoom out. Let's just set that to 16 for the moment, and we'll do the same with this one. We'll put a keyframe in at 16. We might need to alter these very slightly in a moment. I'm just going to copy that to the next keyframe, and then that I'm going to make that zoom. So what should we make it? 120. And we'll do the same with this one. I'll just copy that to the next keyframe so that that is set right. And we'll make that one 120. And we'll see what that looks like. Seem to work. So what I now need to do, I want them to fade out as they zoom, so I will set the opacity on the end there to 0, and I'll do the same with this one, set the opacity to 0, and that should now zoom and fade at the end. Let's just check it. Okay, well that worked. I have to say that when I made these captions, I used a sort of yellowy brown colour as the border, which I don't like, so I'm just going to quickly change that. I'll change it to blue, I think. I'll set them both the same. I'll set them both to blue, and in that way I think they'll look a bit better. Does that look better? Yes, I think that looks better. Okay, so all I've got to do now is to add a little bit of movement onto the background photo. I would say that that point there is where the first zoom needs to end. Let me just check that. That'll do. Now I need to find a zoom, another zoom point, which will be somewhere here. I'll put that there temporarily and move it in a sec. Let's have a look and play the music and check for the phrasing. I'd say that was about right. So what I'm going to now do is to copy that first keyframe to there, and then copy that one to there, so they're all set the same. Everything is now the same. I want this to have a very slight bit of movement initially, so I'm going to make that 110, so there's a very slight zoom out. That's okay. Now this one I want to zoom in on the sign, so I will increase that to, let's say, 125. See what it does. Yeah, it's zooming, but you'll notice that the sign is zooming away. I don't want the sign to zoom away. So here's a little tip for you, a little trick that I use when I create a zoom. I want the zoom to zoom around this point, at the center of this sign. At the moment the zoom is zooming around the center of the screen, as you can see, and the sign is going up and away to the left, which is not what I want. So what I'm going to do, a little tip, you can't see me do this, but I'm now actually putting my finger on the screen just above the G. I'm putting it just, my finger just here on the screen. Okay, it's there. I'll now go to the next keyframe and move the picture so that the same position, the top of the G, is on my finger. It's a little trick that I use. So when I now zoom that, it'll zoom in on the sign rather than on the center of the screen. Okay, that seemed to work. Now let's just play it and make sure it looks okay. Good, I'm quite happy with that. We'll move on to the next slide. Now this one, it does nothing at the moment, so I just want that to, do I want it to zoom in? I think I want it to zoom out. So we need to set the start slightly bigger. Let's make that 125. That's zooming out, but again it's not zooming the way I want it to zoom. So I'll do my old trick again, and I want it to zoom around this position here. So I'm going to use the top of the church, the spire. There's a little ball on the top of the spire there. I'm going to put my finger on that, and then I'll go to keyframe 1 and position this picture so that the ball is just on my finger. So now when I use the zoom, oh, I seem to have put another keyframe in. I don't know how I managed that. Right, let's try that again. Put my finger on the ball at the top of the church, go to keyframe 1 and move that down so that's in exactly the same position. Get it right, that's it. That will now zoom around that position there. Which makes for a much more pleasing zoom. Let's see it happen in real time. Okay, just these first 1 or 2 slides are just going to have a simple zoom on them. I'm going to do the same with this one. I'll make this 125. But what I want it to do is, as it at the moment, it just zooms in, or zooms out, I should say. But I want it to move across the screen as it goes. So I'm going to move this on keyframe 1 as far right as it can go. That's too far, you see, there's a nasty black line down the left. So move left, 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 until we've got the line has disappeared. And that should now, as that zooms, include the image on the right, which is a much more pleasing zoom. Okay, let's see it in real time. That's it. Good. Okay. Now the next slide, I'm going to introduce 2 portrait photos, which are these 2 here. So I'm going to drag those down onto this slide, and I want these 2 to unfold along the center line, fold out, one to this side and one to this side. So what I want to do first is just to add a border to them. So I'll use the vignette, and I will put a solid color and a border of 4. And I'll do the same to this one. A white border. Don't actually want a vignette, I just want a border. So we've now got a border around each of our pictures. Now I want them to be 70, that'll do. I'll just copy that one so it's on both keyframes. Do the same to that one. Okay, now where do I want to position them? This one needs to be over here somewhere, and this one needs to be over here somewhere. Okay, let's make it -23, and I'll set that to both keyframes. And this one needs to be 23, 0, and I'll set that to both keyframes. Good. Oh, excuse me. Now, I don't want it to be square like that. I want to tilt it. So I will add a tilt of, let's say, -12. And I want it slightly turned. Let's say 15. Lovely. Copy that to the next keyframe. So that's -12 on the other one. And it'll be 15. Sorry, -15. Okay, there we go. Copy that to the next keyframe so that it's set. So we've now got two pictures symmetrical around the center, but they don't do anything. So what I've got to do is play the music and find the point, the musical phrase, where they appear. So let's find a start place for them. I think it's there. I think it's there. Let's just play it again. Actually, it's a little bit past there. Let's call it 6.5. I can now do away with that keyframe, and I can set this one as well to 6.5. They should both now appear at 6.5 seconds on the phrase. And they do appear there. Now what I've got to do is find a position for them to come to rest, and that needs to be on a phrase as well. Okay, now the phrase is there, so they need to come to rest just before it. Let's call that 15.6, and I can do the same with that one. Put a keyframe in at 15.6. Okay, right, let's just set all the keyframes the same. Now I need another keyframe there where the phrase begins, where the musical phrase begins, so I can actually then add a zoom. I need to play the music again. That's spot on, and that's 16.079. Okay, 16.079. So we've now got the keyframes set the same. So what I can do is go back to that one, copy that to the next keyframe, and then this one here I can take that up to 90 and do the same with this one. Copy that keyframe to there and then set this to 90, so that now, hello, that's better. There we go. They now zoom in. What we have to do now is to make them start at 0, because I want them to unfold along the center line. I don't want any vertical tilt on it, but I do want it to be turned like that, so that needs to be 90 degrees. And this one, I don't want any vertical tilt, but I want that to be -90 and set to 0. Okay, let's see what happens now. Well, it's nearly right. Something funny has happened to this one. Okay, I forgot to set it, so that's minus 15. That's minus 15. That's minus 23. Minus 15. Which is what happens when you try and rush. Okay, which should now be working. And it should work in time with the music. Let's just check it. Good. All I need to do now is to set a little bit of movement on the background. So let's find a position. I'm going to zoom it. It's going to zoom out the same as the two previous slides. It's going to zoom out, so I need to find a point where to stop the zoom. And I would say there. Okay. So we'll just copy that to the next keyframe, and I'll make this 125, and we'll see what happens. Right. That looks okay, but I don't like the zoom, so I shall do my old little trick again and use this point here as the zoom point by putting my finger on the screen by that little circular ball thing on the top there. And if I could see the screen, because I've got my hand in the way, I shall move that little ball to where my finger is. So now we should have, that's better, a much better zoom. Okay, let's see what happens when we play it from the top. Good, that worked. Quickly save it. The next slide is this one, which is slide number 6, which has another photo in. What I'm going to do with this one is just to zoom a photo in from somewhere here and zoom it in up to about 70 or 80%. So I'm looking for a photograph to put in there now, and I think it's going to be, what slide are we on? Number 6. Number 31 I've chosen. Why can't I see number 31? Because it's right down the bottom there. There we go. There it is. Number 31. My goodness, that looks washed out. We'll need to set that before we do anything else. It looks very washed out. Let's just bring it down, make it a little bit more contrasty. Okay, good. So again, as we're going to bring it in, we need to put a border on. So we'll add a vignette, a solid color, white. We don't want a vignette as such, we just want a border of 4. So we've got a border on that now. Okay, I'm going to bring it in from the start of the slide, but I want it to stop before it gets to the end, so I've got to find a position somewhere here for it to come to rest. There, but that is very near the transition, so I'll come forward just a little bit, come to there. Okay, and I'm going to make this 80%, with a -15. No, that's too much. Make it a -10, and we'll tip it that way just a bit. I think 10 is probably enough. So we copy that to the next keyframe, and copy that to the next keyframe. We want it to... no, we don't want it to zoom, do we? Okay, so now it's got to start small. So we'll make it, let's try 25%. Let's try it flat without any tilt. See what that looks like. Could actually be smaller than that, couldn't it? Let's make it 20%. See what that looks like. Right, that's okay, but I want it to fade in, so I will add another keyframe, which I will set the opacity to 100 there, and then I will reduce the opacity oh, excuse me, to 0 there, so that should now fade in. Actually, I think I can move that keyframe along to where I was going to put it originally, to there. I think that'll be better. Let's see what it looks like. That'll be okay. I do want a little bit of movement on the background picture. Nothing much. And it's got to finish moving by about there. So we'll copy that to there, and we'll make that 110. Just so there's a tiny bit of movement. No. Make that 105. I went the wrong way, idiot. Make that 110. Okay. I will get it right. I could actually do with going a little bit further, that keyframe there. Right, let's see what that looks like. Actually, I think it needs to go a little bit further. Good, that'll do. Excellent. Push the save button. And we're getting through them now. What have we got with this one? This is slide number 7, and this has another photo in it, which is number 4. So we'll put that in there. And this one looks very washed out as well, so I'm going to just take that down a tad, so that looks better. Okay. Good. Now, what I want to do with this photo is to roll it in from somewhere up here to the center of the screen. At the moment, what have we got? Nothing. Okay. So let's find a start position for it, which is there. Somewhere there. And I think maybe somewhere there it can come in. Right, so how do we want it to, what do we want it to look like? We want it to be 75% and -12, and we'll rotate, because it's going to come in from the top right, it needs to be tipped that way slightly, so we'll make that -12 as well. Copy it across so that all the keyframes are the same. So that is how it appears at the moment. Now I want it to roll out to this part of the screen up here. So we'll simply apply how much? About 180, I would think. It doesn't need to be as big, it's got to get larger as it comes in, so we'll make it 40 and we'll move it off the screen to somewhere up here out of harm's way and see what that looks like. Right, now that worked, that's done what I wanted, but I want to add a zoom onto the picture starting somewhere here on this musical phrase, but I don't want the picture to get bigger, I just want the picture to zoom. So what I'm going to do is to copy this slide onto, we're on slide 7, so I'll copy it to slide 7 and it's now put it here. I'm going to adjust it and make it into a white slide, a white image, and use it as a mask layer. As all the settings are the same, it will just follow and appear to be the same at the moment. So now if I set this one to add a keyframe somewhere here, let me play it and see where the keyframe's got to be added. That'll do. It's about right. Maybe it can come back just a little bit. So I need to copy that to the next keyframe, and then on the last keyframe I'll make that about 85 so that it zooms, and it will now roll in and zoom without getting any larger. It actually could go to 90, couldn't it? Yep. Now I think it would look better if it had a border around it, so I'm going to copy this one again to, where are we, slide 7, copy that to slide 7. So that's now given me that white shape, which I will move down to below, and I'll make that into a border by making that 42, making that 77, and making that 77. So that should now give me a white border around the image. Which it does, but the Y needs to be made slightly bigger. That's a more even border. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, one more thing to do. I'm losing my voice now, and that's to add a zoom onto the background photo. Let's play it and see where the zoom position's got to be in regard to the music. About there. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do this time is we're going to set that, copy to the next keyframe, so that keyframe is set the same as that one, and then I want it to zoom in this time, so I'm going to make that 120, and we'll copy that to there, so that's now zooming. But I want to do the same old trick again. I want it to zoom around that point. So what I shall do is put my finger on the screen just below the top of the church, just there. Go to this keyframe here and then move that down. It's very difficult to see because I've got the other image in the way, but never mind. I think I can see it. To there. And then we'll copy that to the next keyframe and see if it works. Good, that worked. Save it. Okay. What have we got next? Right, I'm just going to use the straight zoom on this. Nothing too fancy at all. So we'll set that one to 125. I'm keeping all these zooms fairly small. I don't want a huge amount of zoom. It's a slow piece of music, so I don't really want to give the viewer a white knuckle ride. It's just got to feel right with the music. Okay, so we're going to do our same old trick with the zoom. Finger on the screen at that position there. I'm going to zoom in again on the top of the church. I like these churches, they're useful. Okay, move that across so that's there. So that's now given us our zoom. And let's see what it looks like. That'll do. This one is going to be a little bit more complicated. What I plan to do with this one is to bring in 3 portrait photos. They're going to come in over this side on the left hand side of the screen. And I'm going to make the first one fade up, and it's going to rotate and turn into the next one. That will rotate and turn into the third. So we'll start by finding the pictures we're going to use, and they are number 134. We find number 134. There it is. And this is the first one. We'll add that to the slide. The second one is 0066, which is here. There are 3 cafe pictures, and 0197. There it is. Okay, right, we'll add those. So we've got our 3 slides. There's going to be a bit of a problem with this because it's fairly short. What have we got? 16 and a bit, nearly 17 seconds. We've got to bring all 3 slides in time with the music. Okay, so let's start by adding a border to each one. We'll use the vignette. Solid color white. As we've done before, we'll set them all to 4. That's the first one. That's the second one. And just the last one to do. Okay, so that's got our 4 slides set with the border. Now we need to position them to the left and reduce the size to, well, let's try 70. We'll work with the top one first so we can see what we're doing. We'll set that to 70. Let's go to keyframe 1, shall we? Make life a bit simple. And let's drag it over here somewhere. Let's make it -25 and 0. Okay, that looks about right to me. So we'll copy that keyframe to the next one so that it's set right the way across. Okay. minus 25 and 70, and copy it to the next keyframe, and we'll do the same with that one, minus 25, 70, and copy it to the next keyframe. Okay, so we've now got our 3 portrait photos in exactly the same position on the screen. Now I'm going to work with the first one to bring it in and to zoom it in and rotate it. So I'm going to hide these two because they're going to be distracting me. So the first thing I've got to do is to find a point to start the fade. So let's play the music. I think probably there. Okay, let's drag that keyframe to that point and see if it's about right. Play it again. Yep, that will be okay because it's going to have a fade on it, so that will look good. And I've got to find where the end of the zoom will be, so let's play the music again. Okay, so it wants to be about there, somewhere there. Let's play the music and check. That's about right. So what I'm going to do now is to copy the first keyframe to the second, and then set the first keyframe to, oh, what shall we say, 25%? Okay, let's see what that looks like. Not too bad. It needs a fade on it, so I'm just going to put a keyframe in here, somewhere there, set its opacity to 100% and reduce the first one to 0 so we get a fade. And let's see what happens now. That's fine. So now we need a point to start the rotation for the first photo, so we'll listen to it again and watch the timeline and see where we're going to start the turn. I'd say it's there, somewhere there. I'm going to make that, for convenience, 6.5. I think that's about right musically. Now we need to find a point for it to finish the turn. Looks to me as if it's about 8 seconds. I'm going to set it to 8. I'll show you why in just a moment. Right, let's play it and see. Okay. Right, so what I need to do now is to copy that to the next keyframe and do the same with that one, so that these are all exactly the same. Now I want to rotate this, so I'm going to use the horizontal tilt, and we'll have it rotate that way. So I'm going to set that to minus 180. It finishes there, so we can actually get shot of the last keyframe. That will now, if I show you, rotate like that and then disappear. Good. Let's look at it in real time. That seemed to work. Now I'm going to bring in the second one, and this has got to start on the rotation, which is at 6.5 seconds, and it's got to finish its rotation at 8 seconds. So we'll start that at 6.5. Why did it go to 6? 6.5. Thank you. And we'll put another keyframe at 8 seconds. So we want them both the same at the moment, so we'll copy the first one to the second one. And on the second one, it's got to rotate through, what did we set it to? Minus 180. Minus 180. And we will copy that to the next keyframe, so that's all the same. Okay. Now, what you'll notice is it turns, but doesn't appear until the rotation has stopped. So what we need to do is to make this first photo fade out halfway through the turn. So when it gets to that point, it's got to start the fade. So we will set the opacity to 100, put another keyframe in just after the turn, and set that opacity to 0. We need to set the opacity of the final one to 0 as well, so that now as the first photo turns, when it gets halfway, we see the second one. Like that. Excellent. Good. So now what we've got to do is to find where the second photo starts its turn. But one thing I must do, because I'm turning it, it's actually flipped horizontally, so I need to put it back so it's the right way around. Okay, we'll now find where the second photo starts its second turn. And I would say it's on that musical phrase there. So let's pop a keyframe in there. We need to make it a sensible time, so I'll make it 10.8 because I need to use it again for the next one. Right, and then we need to find where the turn finishes. So let's play it again. Okay, so it's got to be somewhere here on that little beat there. Let's make it 12.5. Okay, so what we can do now is to copy keyframe 2 to keyframe 3. This is where the turn is going to start on keyframe 3, so we'll just copy that to that one, and we want it to turn that way again. So that's going to be minus 360. And we don't need the last keyframe, so we can cut it. Okay, so now that will turn again. And we can now bring in the third photo, which has got to start its turn on 10.8 and finish on 12.5. So we'll set that to 10.8 and put another keyframe in here at 12.5, and we'll copy the first one to the second one and make the second one minus 180. Let's do it manually, and then we can copy that to the next keyframe. Now, because we've twisted it again, we need to flip it horizontally so it's the right way around and review it. Okay, there we go. It's doing exactly the same as the first one did, so what we need to do is to make the second photo here fade out halfway through the turn. So a point there somewhere, we'll set that to 100. And then we need to reduce the opacity as the photo goes through. -90 degrees to 0, so we'll set that to 0 as well. So now what we've got is 3 photos. Let's play it from the top. 3 photos. The first one appears, zooms in, turns, changes into the second one turns and changes into the third. That seems to work. Now it would be rather nice if it were to zoom somewhere here, and we need to put a keyframe, so let's just pop one in anywhere. Play the music. Yeah, I think the zoom has got to start about there. So we'll copy this keyframe to the next one, and then on the final one we'll make that, let's try 85 and see what it looks like. Okay, let's run it from the top. Right, that seemed to work. All I need to do now is to add a little bit of zoom on the background photo. So that picture is zooming in. Let's find a position. I think probably by the time that reaches its full size, which is there, 5.03. Wrong one. As that reaches, watch the picture, as that reaches its full size, that will be the end of the zoom. Okay, so we'll copy to the next keyframe, and we'll make this 120 and see what that does. Yep, that seems to work. Let's look at it in real time. Lovely. Well, that one worked. Quickly press the save button and we can move on to the next slide.